Hey, we're gonna start. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this webinar. I'm Eileen Ruby. I'm the chair of the Federation Board of Directors. Over this last month, we have been confronted with unimaginable horror, shock, pain, fear, sorrow. How do we make sense of what just happened? How is this possible? And what can we do? For one thing, we can draw some comfort from the strength of the response of the Jewish communities all across the country and the world, and our own community locally. Just the fact that almost 200 people have signed up for this webinar is an indication of how much people care. The Federation is proud of the role that we play as a central address to build and strengthen our Jewish community, and also to come together in times of crisis and need. We plan carefully in the hope that these moments never arise, but they do. And when they do, we're prepared to respond. 2 months ago, the Federation Executive Committee formed an Israel Affairs Task Force to ensure that our Israel policies, programs, and philanthropy reflect our community's values. With guidance from this task force and from our Innovative Israel Office, we're advancing our vision for a prosperous, free, democratic Israel. So when this crisis hit, we were positioned to respond. We have responded, we are responding, and we're proud of that response. From our Israel Emergency Fund, to solidarity gatherings, to meetings with elected officials, to high-level informational briefings. Thank all of you for joining us today, and thank you for giving your time and your money to this cause. Last week, our community joined a deeply meaningful solidarity mission to Israel. This intense 36-hour trip was organized by the Jewish Federations of North America. We were represented by my fellow board and Israel Affairs Task Force members, Barry Cohn and Guy Miasnik, who's the chair of the Israel Task Force. They will be joined today by Barak Luzan, who is the director of our Israel office. I'm pleased to turn the program over to our facilitator, Joy Sisiski, our brilliant and seemingly tireless Federation CEO. It's to you, Joy.
Thank you, Eileen, and it's so nice to see all of you today. Thank you for joining us. We just marked, as you heard Eileen say, 1 month, or the end of Shloshim, the traditional mourning period in Judaism, when we have lost a loved one. And it's hard to believe that October 7th was just 30 days ago. It seems like it was yesterday. And I know it's heavy on your hearts. And I'm thinking about all the ways that our Bay Area Jewish community has come together in solidarity and with generosity during that time. Our Israel Emergency Fund has raised over $16 million from generous donors. Many of you are on the call today, so I want to say thank you. And across the United States, we are part of a network of 154 Jewish federations, which have together raised over $600 million and counting. And 100% of those donations are going directly where they are needed most. And we have already made grants totaling about $150 million. The allocations committee is meeting twice a week and making grants as quickly as the cash is coming in to the most pressing needs on the ground through over 100 partner organizations and NGOs in Israel. And as the needs continue to evolve, so will we. So I just want to say thank you for your generosity. Again, for those of you who have not donated but want to, you can visit us on our website at jewishfed.org. And as critical as the support is, the Federation's role as a Center for Jewish Philanthropy also entails a lot more. It includes, as Eileen sort of alluded to, our organizing, solidarity rallies and gatherings at temples and Jewish community centers, at city halls, and in public spaces across the Bay Area. We've also hosted briefings with the Israel's Consul General and our longtime partner, the JDC, the CEO, Ariel Zwang. And together, in partnership with our colleagues at JCRC, we're meeting with local, state, and federal officials here in the Bay Area, in Sacramento, and in Washington, D.C. We are rising to meet the security challenges posed by the current environment of rising anti-Semitism through our dedicated Federation security team, which is providing information, training, and support for institutions across Northern California. I'd say the common thread here is really staying connected, gathering in community, and staying informed. And hopefully what we'll do today is hear from our Federation leaders, Barak Luzon, Guy Miasnik, and Barry Cohen, to help keep us up to date and to share their recent experiences of being in Israel and representing the Bay Area. So I want to start by thanking them. So we're going to move into a panel discussion. I'm going to start with Barak, who is not only a colleague, but a dear friend. I want to thank him for his resiliency and his big heart and all of the work that he is doing in Israel on behalf of the Jewish community in the Bay Area and beyond. He's also staying up late. They're about 10 hours ahead of us. So I want to thank you for doing that, Barak, as a tireless presence in Israel for the Federation. And Barry and Guy, thank you for joining us, for representing our community and sending that message of solidarity and care to our friends in Israel by being on the ground. You both saw so much in that short period of time. So before we get into it in the details of the trip, would you please, Guy and Barry, share with us your feelings about the experience, if you don't mind starting there?
Thank you, Joy. Thank you, everybody, for being here and participating in this. And I'll give you a little better background just to lay the groundwork. For those that don't know, I've been involved and been traveling to Israel since 1976. I started a development company in the late 1990s, a real estate development company there, and I've been traveling there every year, many times each year during the year. And this was it was an intense experience to go on this trip, and I went early before the mission. And I just want to share a couple of things to kind of lay the groundwork for what it feels like when you're there, and the experience of the Israelis and how it impacts everyone. The trauma that existed and happened there impacts everyone. So when I arrived at the plane, my sister-in-law picked me up, and we were driving out of the airport, and a siren went off. You have to pull over in that scenario, and if you can find an overpass and get underneath it, which is what we did, or you can actually they recommend you lay out on the ground. And Israelis all want to make certain they carry blankets in their cars so that they don't have to lay on the dirty ground. They can lay on a blanket. The next day, I had meetings in a tower in Ramat Gan with my accountant and with my attorney. We were on the 44th floor of a beautiful high-rise. Think of it very similar to 101 California Street. And you start the meeting. The first experience in that meeting was hearing how the situation has impacted each individual, whether it's someone that they've lost. My attorney had two sons, both of whom are currently in Gaza. And when they describe the experience, it hits you right down into your core. This is who you could be, having your children there, and their children are your children. And so before you get into any business, any daily existence, you are you're taken to their emotion. So the experience, how it makes you feel, is very real. I tried to coordinate a lunch with a friend of mine who has 3 young children. Each time I called him, we started the conversation, and the siren went off. We had to end the conversation. He had to get into the shelter with his kids. Never got to coordinate the lunch, but yet you move around and you exist, and it is remarkable to witness the resilience that the Israelis demonstrate every moment, and that feeling courses through your veins, and that's the takeaway: the trauma and the resilience.
Barry, thank you, and thank you everybody for coming and participating in this event. hit you in the core. That's probably the best immediate sentence, and Barry, thank you for mentioning that. That's really what every person in Israel conveyed to us as we met. And as I landed, and as many of you know, I'm Israeli myself, and living here for many years in the States, but been part of Israel for all of my life. I've never seen Israel in this situation and in this state. And it's tough. It wasn't an easy visit. It wasn't an easy trip. It was actually a very difficult one in so many ways. As I came in and as I landed, you immediately feel that something is different. You feel a quietness in the street. Israel is a 24/7 country. It's not right now. People are at home. People are not going out. And then I got home. I went to visit my parents live in Kfar Saba. Kfar Saba is in the Sharon district, about the center of Israel. And on my way, I was stopped in a checkpoint to enter Kfar Saba. Never in my life, when I've been living in Israel and visiting Israel, was I stopped in a checkpoint to enter Kfar Saba. And then I got home, climbed up, and my parents live in the 3rd floor. And I enter, we hug and kiss, and then I see a gun, a handgun, on the side of the table. And I ask my dad, hey, what's up? What is that? And he said, listen, we are concerned. I said, hey, Gaza is 1 minute and 30 seconds away. That's the way you measure distances in Israel today. It's the time a rocket can come from Gaza. You're 1 minute and 30 seconds away. Why are you concerned? You're far. He said, no, maybe Gaza is far, but Kalkilia, which is in the West Bank, is just 1.5 miles away. And that scares me. I need to protect Ima, mom. And then you realize that what has happened here is a transformation between thinking about Israel as an issue of national security, the borders, Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, to a personal security issue. Each person in Israel feels now a lack of personal security. Think about your home in Los Altos or in Marine or wherever you live. And these are the same places that are in Israel, but someone, a very evil someone, entered that house and massacred and or took hostage your family. And if it happened in one area of Israel, the feeling is that it can happen anywhere. And that's a very deep and concerning feeling. So people are feeling it on a very personal level right now. And when you get to Israel, you see that. But you also see the resiliency, you see the power, and we'll share with you some of that experience that we've seen here in Israel as well, the unity that came out of that kind of a feeling. So it was a very tough visit. I came back anxious, angry, but also encouraged by the power of the unity and resiliency that I've seen.
Thank you for sharing, both of you, those very personal stories. I think many of us who have been to Israel on occasions throughout our life can imagine it, but to show up there and with your families, I appreciate you sharing this and the place that comes from. We're going to talk a little bit about the terror attack on October 7th. And I understand that you have, Guy and Barry, some visuals from Magen David Adom, one of the recipients from the emergency fund, that you want to share with us, so that we can learn a little bit about the attack from those first responders and others that we maybe don't always see in the news. I do want to say to people who are listening into this, Some of this is going to be really difficult to see, and some of these images are disturbing, and you should take care of yourself while you're on this call to make sure you need to do what you need to do to feel safe in this. We did think it was important to be able to share these stories firsthand from Guy and Barak, and from Guy and Barry, and then later Barak. So would you tell us a little bit about what we're looking at?
So one of the first meetings we had was with Magen David Adom, and they told us the story of what their experience was starting at 6:30 in the morning on October 7th. And one of the speakers that we heard from was a woman named Ronit. She was called, she's a dispatch person in the Jerusalem office. Now, Magen David Adom has quadrants all over the country where they dispatch the ambulances and the support. Obviously, down in the south, they have a separate district than the one in Jerusalem, which is the office that we were at. But what happens when one of the districts is overloaded, the calls rotate over to where the next available agent or dispatch person would be to handle the call. And so they were being flooded, overwhelmed down in the south. So the calls rotated up to Jerusalem. So they called in their dispatch people, and Ronit was called early in the morning, little after 6:30 in the morning. She was called to come into the office. She had to scramble to get ready. She had to bring her two children, aged 8 and 10, and they scrambled to the office to get there. She had to put her children in the lunch break room because they couldn't be where the call center was, and she went to answer the calls. And the intensity of what she was hearing, and you'll hear in a second with this video, is impossible to kind of imagine what really the emotion that was going through her veins. As she described, normally they want to be able to help. They're very calm individuals, and they are capable of holding the people on the other end of the line for the information and in place till help can get there. That was not possible to do that morning, and all she could do was try and express her understanding of the fear and the pain that they were experiencing at that moment. This video, you'll see, is her voice is a little soft, so if you want to turn your volume up, you can hear how she describes it. And the pain that she then described afterwards, it's not on this video, but is having to explain to her children what was going on, and what she thought was going to be a 2 or 3 hour experience turned out to her being there for 12 hours.
I've been here in this hole in the ground for 3 hours. 2 of my friends are killed. I have another friend with shrapnel in his hip. He hasn't stopped bleeding. I have shrapnel in my legs, and we're running out of water. I only hear Arabic around me. Where are you? And there was nothing to answer. My answer was, I understand. You're absolutely right. We're doing everything we can to arrive. We know where you are, and we will get there as soon as possible. The thing is that we got, we have a way in the dispatch to receive their location. They send us via WhatsApp, via text message, their precise location. And turns out that the Army, for the week or two afterwards, used the locations that we got in order to find all the people that, throughout that morning, who called us, and also throughout the next couple of days.
So I don't know if you can hear, it doesn't sound like, it's hard to hear. What she's describing is that she's taking in a call from someone, and she's describing, the person is describing that the person has shrapnel in his side, and someone else has shrapnel in their side, and they need help, and they're asking, where are they? And she can't do anything. She can't get anyone there because she knows that the first ambulance that showed up, that first ambulance had made it into Barry, where I think that call was coming in from. The driver was shot. So Magen David Adom had to figure out how they could navigate getting through there when there wasn't the support, and they were their personnel was being fired at. And she was expressing the pain that she heard coming from the other end of the line, and her understanding. All she could say was, "I understand," and that was her expression. That's what that video essentially said.
Thank you. Sorry that we couldn't hear it better on there. I know that the mission also visited Ofakim, which is a small town of about 35,000 people, sort of situated between Gaza and Beersheba, and was one of the places where terrorists attacked. What did you learn there about the attack and the continued trauma that they are experiencing in Ofakim?
So Ofakim is a city about 40,000 people, about 8 miles away from Gaza. About 14 terrorists came in on a truck and entered the city. The police was actually not in the city at all because they went out to protect the party that you've heard of, the Nova Party, which is a music festival that was happening very close to Gaza. And as they were protecting, as they were there was no forces in the city itself to protect the citizens. And then we met with the mayor, and the mayor described to us the panic that happened in the city. No forces to protect, police is out, no army. Army doesn't exist in the cities. And suddenly he's getting news of attacks, of terrorists rampaging the streets. I'll share with you the story of one family, Rachel and David. You may have heard that family. Rachel is this lady in the middle. And as the terrorists came in, 5 of them entered her home. And the home you can see on the left side. And they were not there to play games or Monopoly. These guys were rampaging, killing, massacring around. But somehow this hero, Rachel, managed to touch these folks. She spoke with them in Arabic. She actually covered the wounds of one of them. And for 19 hours, she managed to buy time. She and her husband, David, were in the room and with 5 terrorists holding them hostage at that point and waiting for the police to come. She gave them this cookie that you're seeing on the right side. It's called the ma'amul, which is a cookie of dough and dates. And that was that became a symbol in Israel of the heroism of this lady that was able to stand and avoid the massacre to her own family. She saved herself and her husband. After those hours, the SWAT team of the police managed to get in. They entered from the window and the door, and they managed to take down these terrorists. And we actually entered the house, and you can see how the house looks now from the inside. Literally blood, bullet holes. And I can say as an Israeli who grew up in Israel, when we were going as a teenager, as a high schooler, into historical sites, we actually saw part of seeing those walls with a bullet hole in them. It's histories of Independence Day wars, it's histories of '67 war, even before. But that's the history. Here we saw houses with bullet holes in them in the middle of a town in Israel in 2023. And that was very difficult.
If I can add one thing, Joy, to show the magnitude of the trauma, today and every day since October 7th, the hotline for the city of Ofakim has been absorbing calls from its citizens to the tune of 1,000 calls a day suggesting that their citizenry, their individuals calling, fearing that there are terrorists outside their front door, and that they need help. The magnitude of managing that trauma for the city is immense, and something that that now has to be handled. And Ofakim is about 10 miles east of Gaza Strip, and it's one of the few cities that actually is still populated down in that area.
Unbelievable. And these photos, thank you for sharing them with us.
And Joy, if I just add on this one, what you're seeing is part of the recovery. You're seeing the memorials. These are memorials in the street of Ofakim, stood up by the people. These are the actual location. These policemen, 2 policemen here, have been killed, been shot. At that location, they constructed a makeshift memorial. But you're also seeing the flag of Israel, and the slogan, not all entire, was captured in the photo, but it's Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. So that's in the street, and that's the way people mourn, but also recover.
You're talking about the sense of resiliency that you mentioned at the beginning, which is unbelievable because you were just there a couple days ago, and at the same time, you're also talking about an emergency that is still underway, people still in bomb shelters, still rockets. So the need to do both of these things at the same time is just really unbelievable. One of the aspects that many have overlooked is this 250,000 people of internally displaced people. Internally displaced people are refugees, but who are in their own home. So there's about 250,000 Israelis who have been forced out of their homes, have moved to other parts of the country. And many of them are among the survivors from some of the hardest hit places, including Kibbutz Be'eri. And I know you had the opportunity to visit with some of them at a relocation site. They were staying in a hotel kind of near the Dead Sea. What are some of the things that you heard from them, the challenges that they're experiencing? You're just starting to talk about that in your last remarks, but their status as refugees, what does that mean to them?
So it's almost unimaginable, as we might imagine, in that Michal, who's the woman that's pictured that we're standing next to, she and her husband and her 3 kids woke up on October 7th at 6:30 in the morning, and a siren was going off. Not an atypical experience down in Be'eri, as it's right on the border. So they got up, they collected their kids, but and brought them to the shelter. They realized very shortly, or very quickly, 10 minutes, 20 minutes at the most into it, that this was not a normal, if one can say going into a shelter is a normal experience. This was not a normal experience. And soon they heard Arabic out and around their houses. They heard gunfire. They heard banging. That people were trying to get into their shelter, and it was a horrifying number of hours that they were in their shelter with their kids. And you can imagine trying to calm your kids. What happens if you have to use the bathroom? There's no bathroom in the shelter. They had a bucket basically that they utilized. And the trauma that created. They were relocated. They were fortunate. They got out and they were relocated to a hotel on the Dead Sea, and the whole town of Be'eri was relocated to this particular hotel, and they are beginning to try and figure out what does it mean for them to now assemble their lives. Where are they going to work? Where are their kids going to go to school? Where are they going to get their clothes? Where are they going to get their food? All of these component parts of putting your life back together when the threat is not over. You still have bombs being lobbed into the country and sirens going off. It's a tragic traumatic experience that they're all going through. Yet
I-
they're pulling it, they're beginning to put the semblance of their lives together. And Guy, you can jump into where that is.
So as Barry was saying, the relocation of these, I hate to use the word in Israel, but refugees, 200,000 overall, but refugees coming from a completely devastated, destroyed community. And it's not individuals only, it's families and an entire community. Kibbutzim is as close a community as you can imagine. And these are communities of people that are experienced death and slaughter and hostages. So it's everything is in one intense situation here. And they've been relocated to a hotel. And the hotel transposed itself effectively to a refugee camp. Unbelievable. And you can see in this image, in this photo in the middle, the extremity on the right side, a hotel corridor like each one of us has been at many times. And then on the left side is the storage area where they have donations of clothes and any household item that you can imagine, because when they were evacuated, they had nothing. Nothing. So in the same hotel, just across the hallway, is effectively a refugee equipment storage for clothes and others. But interestingly enough, if you look on the right side, you see tables over there. These are work tables, duties tables that are very common in kibbutzim. If you've ever been in a kibbutz and you go into the common areas, there is a distribution of workload, what each one needs to do. So they adapted the same approach, and you walk around and you see these toranuyot, work duties tables for people to take care, and they are trying to rebuild their community in the kibbutz. But when you think about it, it's not just the people, the individuals, but kids. There are kids over there who need to get back to school, create some level of normalcy, which is the way to become sane in such a situation. And they need a school, they need a preschool, they need a kindergarten. It doesn't exist. Theirs were burned down and destroyed. So here you can see images on how they transposed, on the left, it's a dining hall of the kibbutz. On the right, it's a backyard where they put a tent, and they recreated their preschools and kindergartens, and actually used the same names for the rooms. This says Gan Amnon, which is the name of one of the rooms from Be'eri. They actually created that as a continuity, and this was done by donations from many people, donations of equipment and money. Even the most basic elements, a school bag, a water bottle, they don't have one. So everything needed to be bought and purchased and delivered to these families so they can rebuild their life. On the right side, you're seeing what became an icon. That's a puppet, a stuffed animal called the Chibuki. Chibuki is the hugger, in the name of hugging. And it is a creature that is used to comfort kids. It has a way to hug you and have a way to sort of close its hands around you, and it became the icon of the refugees, of the families, not just for kids but for adults as well. So you're getting a glimpse a bit of what does it mean to now reconstruct life. This is in a hotel. It's not something that is sustainable. Their own community, who knows when it will be back and livable. So there will be a need for a midterm solution as well, which is out of the hotel and into more decent housing, which is one of the next key challenges in Israel. And then on the way back. Barak, maybe you want to share with us some of the activities, because what we are seeing here are done by some of the donations and grantees that we support.
Yes, thank you, everybody. And it's I just want to say that having Guy and Barry and the whole Solidarity Mission coming in and showing up in this time is significant and really, really meaningful. And I thank you, and I thank all of you who are coming in and showing up. So we kind of we kind of delve into these centers of really refugees in their own lands. And the big number of 200,000 is actually not the numbers of kibbutzniks, right? Kibbutzim are, 300, 400, 1,000, and so on. But the fact of the matter is that we have another major population that was evacuated from their homes, and these are major cities. The whole city of Kiryat Shmone is now evacuated from their home. The whole city of many of Sderot was evacuated, and Ofakim as well. What we see now is that what Guy and Barry were mentioning, and we were there kind of visiting these kind of these hotels, the situation where a whole community of a kibbutz kind of plugged into a hotel, and in a way, in their mindset, really continuing their community life. So the functionalities are kind of continuing to function, of course, in a different way, but still there's a community structure. The main problem that we saw is a lack of a future picture, of a future vision. These places do not have a place to go back. Many of them actually cannot go back home. So many of them are now actually busy in figuring out, okay, what do we do? It's not a week time, just to bring it back to a family setting. You get one hotel room, parents and kids in one room, no division within the room even. So you can be there a week or two or a month, but it's going to take like months and years maybe until we can go back to some kind of life. So they're now busy in kind of designing the next phase of rebuilding these communities, whether to stay together, hire a few buildings, build a new moshav or kibbutz in a different place, and so on and so forth. And you also hear the political kind of talk that we hear. They say we don't want to go back if it's a kibbutz with a fence around it. We want to go back secure enough and confident enough that we don't need a fence. What we saw is that the people in the kibbutzim, but also outside of the kibbutzim, meaning the people who are now footing, the packing the hotels in Tel Aviv, who are from major cities, have no community structure and no educational structure whatsoever. Dror, the youth movement of Dror, JDC, other youth movements in Israel have actually stood up for it and kind of rose up for this challenge and set up what they call kind of pop-up schools, pop-up kind of community centers, pop-up schools, all kinds of spheres where they gather the teens and they gather the kids and they have kind of informal and formal education kind of activities. And this is maybe what we've just heard. This is maybe the one solid thing, constant thing that these kids are kind of going through. They work on their mental health these days. They share a lot. They speak a lot with each other, and so on and so forth. So we're very happy to be able to support these efforts and much more.
Thank you. And Barak, it's nice to hear your voice, and we're with you even if we're not there. Another stop on this mission paid a visit to some of the families of the 247 hostages, who include infants, entire families, disabled people, Holocaust survivors, the elderly. What did some of those families tell you, and what are the messages they want us to know as they continue to experience this terror?
This is probably one of the most difficult part of the visit, is actually to meet with the hostage families. We met once at the Foreign Ministry in Jerusalem, and then I had another visit to what's called the Forum for Hostages and Missing People in Tel Aviv. First of all, you're seeing here, this is one slide of 24. There are 10 of these, 24 out of 240 hostages. These hostages are kids and families. If you look at the top, the Bibas family, Ariel, a 4 years old, Kfir, a 10-month-old baby. Shiri and Yarden are the parents. You're seeing the Cunyo family, Ariel, David, Emma, Aloni, and Yuli, another 3-year-old, 2 twins. You're seeing adults, Cooper Amiram, 84, Danzig, Alexander, Alex, 75. I can't imagine anything more tragic than that. I mean, and this is 24 out of them, not 240. Think about the stories of entire families being held hostage at different locations in who knows what kind of conditions across Gaza. And that's something that every person in Israel, and I think across the Jewish world, is feeling now as these people are now held captive by Hamas. For me, it was devastating. It was difficult to hear. I'll share with you a couple of videos. One, a bit tough. It's one that actually a hostage being taken in Gaza itself. These are photos taken by members of the Hamas in Gaza on the day on October 7th. And you're seeing over there a woman in another small family, a woman and a mother and 2 kids that she's holding and protecting in the back of a truck with Hamas members shouting, Allah Akbar. God is great for kidnapping a woman and 2 kids. A very difficult situation. We had a chance to meet personally with 2 families, and best is actually to see a video that was produced out of that meeting by JFNA, by a host, the Jewish Federation of North America. This was taken at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Jerusalem, and I'll just share it with you. You can get the direct feeling that we experienced there.
We're here representing the Jewish Federations of North America. It was very important for us to come here so that everyone in Israel can see us and know that we're standing next to you.
My family is my Aunt Ruthie, my Uncle Abraham. They're 78 years old. My uncle is not well, he can barely walk. We know they took him. With my aunt and with Karen, my cousin, and her son Ohad, we do know that they're alive. My uncle and aunt built the kibbutz along with my parents. I was born in the kibbutz as well. This kibbutz have less than 400 people. Something like 70 people were kidnapped to Gaza along with my family, and more than 20 murdered, butchered in the kibbutz. This is their only grandchild, and this is their only daughter now, but they don't know it because they don't know that we buried their son. Without them, my cousin Toi, he was 50 years old, he was murdered in the kibbutz. They shot him.
In some cases, they made sure that we won't be able to identify the bodies. They went down to ashes. Some people will never be properly identified and buried.
This is a symbol. Kibbutz Nir Oz is a quiet, peaceful community. The people who live there are peace-loving people. They are going to the border with Gaza, and they're taking people from Gaza to hospitals. They helped Palestinians in Gaza and they worked the land. These people are farmers.
Where is he? Is he with his mother? We don't know if he's with his mother. 25 days he's in Gaza inside a tunnel. I don't know where is he. I don't know. And he's 9 years old.
You're on top of minds for the community.
We'll do anything we can to help.
You are front of mind for us, and we are connected.
When we are together and strong and focused, there isn't anything that we can't do.
And so know, as messengers of North America Jewelry, we're here with you, we hear you, we understand you, and we will do everything we can to be with you at this time and moment to get your family members returned.
It's overwhelming to watch this as a, as a mother with young kids, as a human being. It's just so overwhelming. And, I can't thank you. I know you're going to say something, Barry. I just want to say thank you for being there and sharing these stories. I mean, we hear all the time, it's so important to keep this at the top of the agenda. There are people that are still being held hostage. And, I know this is difficult to watch, but I just want to say thank you for being there to share these stories with us.
So in the universe of small worlds, I mentioned the first time I went to Israel was in 1976 on a nifty trip from Camp Swig. And we spent a month at Kibbutz Nir Oz with Osnat's parents as part of the group that we were working with. And there's not much separation between us and Israelis, right? The fact of the matter is there's 1 degree of separation between us all. We all know somebody that's connected. And the main message that I think they were driving to us to try and take out is to tell the story, to continue to press the issue of the hostages to the front of the line. And however we do that, wherever we are, to make it an issue for everyone to be aware of. And I happen to be wearing a blue ribbon that is a campaign for identifying and calling out. Get a ribbon, wear it on any piece of clothing that you have and wherever you go, so that you get asked about it. We keep the hostages on the front of our minds and pressed by the community that can help, i.e. one of them that was requested by the Magen David Adom group was that we urge our congressmen, or men and women, to call and put pressure on the Red Cross to find out what is happening with the hostages, because America funds the Red Cross, and we can use them to help to find out information about them.
Thank you. I know that while you were there, you also saw ways that the country was coming together. You showed us a few photos already about what people are doing to remember, to build resiliency, stepping up to volunteer. Can you talk a little bit about some of that hope?
So one of the remarkable things about Israel, and as we all watched over the last year, the challenges with the judicial reform and the division of the country and the protests that happen in the country, and wondering how this country was going to pull itself together. Miraculously, if you will, on one day, the country was united, and the community that that exists in Israel, that we all know is the undergirding of the country, came to life again, and the needs of all of these individuals, those refugees that exist in the country, the army that is going out to protect the citizenry. Everybody wants to do something to be a part of it and to help. The picture that's up on the screen happens to be at my sister-in-law's house, where they have essentially set up a factory outside in their courtyard outside their house to prepare 250 meals a day that get distributed around the country, some to the army, some to individuals, as Guy described it as a refugee camp. But this is being duplicated all across the country. This is just one house that's happening. The community is really remarkable, and that's that resiliency that we're talking about. You can see it, you can feel it, and you can see in these photos that this is a Hamal, which is basically a pop-up resource center that's in Jerusalem. Now they commandeered a theater, and the stage that you're looking at, that's the stage where they put, in this particular section, they had paper goods, and then they have food, and they have clothing, and they have all different throughout the multi-story theater that exists, and they have a hotline center, and they have a distribution center that's happening out of this particular Hamal. But the fact is that the community that's created and that is working in Israel to make certain that the resources are distributed all throughout the country to where they are needed is really an inspiration that we were witness of, and you could see the depth of capability that exists inside the population.
It was quite remarkable that a lot of it is grassroots activities. It's people coming together, calling their friends, calling their colleagues, creating WhatsApp groups, and very quickly mobilizing in a massive way in order to support. And the needs change all the time. The first week, I'm sure many of you have seen that as well. There was a need for supplemental elements for the military, as they were calling massive reserve. So people helped. Then the evacuees, and across the board, every sort of those hamals, the quick situation rooms, but also hamal is passion and being passionate and merciful. Those rooms have stood up. But things are actually even more broader than that, meaning Israel is going through issues across different industries. So think about 350 or 60,000 soldiers or Miluim reserve people are out. Areas of the country are now declared as military zones, so people are evacuated. What do you do with agriculture? Okay, many of these areas are the food source of Israel. So I'll share with you one example here. What you're seeing here is actually my mother-in-law, who volunteered. She's in her late 70s, who is now volunteering to pick up, I think these are watermelons or something, and then tomatoes on the right, in fields across the country. This one is actually quite close to Gaza. So people who have never volunteered before, or have not necessarily activists in any way, are taking on different tasks across Israel in helping refugees, helping businesses, helping food supply. Everybody's coming together. And I think that's the core at the end. That's what makes us unique and strong. That unity, that DNA that goes not just in Israel, but actually here as well to the entire Am Israel, and connects us together and gets us together to deal with this. And the way the American community, the American Jewish community, the Israeli American community came together to support, and in so many ways, not just financially, but and advocacy, in activities, in visits, in all of these connections are really what makes everybody strong and gives us the huge hope that we will come out winning. I'll share with you one last photo, and actually in a very different atmosphere. This was 4 days ago in Tel Aviv, or in Kiryat Ono, it's a suburb of Tel Aviv, where I met a friend of mine just before flying out. And Israelis are going back to coffee, going back to work. And that's actually in Israel is regarded as the sign of power, of strength, of not allowing these atrocities to win us over. And it's starting to happen now. 3 weeks, 4 weeks, this is at the 4-week mark, give or take. And it's the core power of our nation.
I think if I can add just a little bit here, I think also, you know, we're in shock. I think that the first 2-3 weeks that many Israelis were really trying to figure out what happened. And in many ways, these first minutes, hours actually on October 7th from 6:30, many people called the army, called the police, called the country, and no one picked up. Meaning, you know, we had heroes, soldiers, heroes, policemen, but there was no army, there was no police. And I think in the mindset of many Israelis, we were stateless. We were stateless. So that's the downside of this major meta crisis that we're going through. And I think that we're going to do a lot of work now in rebuilding trust, in rebuilding our government institutions, in rebuilding, you know, the social contract between us. However, as Barry and Guy mentioned, it's unbelievable. We, frankly, you know, as a person who worked in your community, we became a Jewish community. Like, we're baking challahs. We're not looking up to find the right minister from the government to help us. No, we're actually the checkpoint that Guy was mentioning before. Karen, my wife, and me were volunteering and standing in checkpoints now in the entrance to the kibbutz. And that's after we're volunteering and preparing sandwiches for soldiers. One of them is our son. We're all day long. You work and you volunteer. And this is amazing. We thought we lost it. And Arvut Hadadit and solidarity, this is our secret power.
Thank you. And for everything you're doing on top of everything you're already doing and taking care of your family, Barak. I have one last question each for Guy and Barry, but I'm going to ask people in the audience if they do have questions for Barak, for Guy, for Barry, that you please send it in using the Q&A chat button at the bottom of the screen. And we'll save some time at the end for that. Guy, you started talking about this. How did the Israelis you met react to your visit? And, you know, what do they think about what's happening outside of Israel?
Thank you, Joy. It's actually a fascinating situation, what's going on. People are really thinking about it as 3 fronts. The obvious one is the battle, the war against Hamas, but it's actually bigger than Hamas. It's against the axis that is led by Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas together. And that's the clear front. Then there's the home front. The home front is really where people are living. It's not just the borders and the geopolitical aspect, it's what we've seen now. It's the penetrations to people's house, the rockets. Thousands of rockets are being fired in Israel in this war, as there were in others. So the threat to the home front is real. The threat to home front is actually quite complex. It's not just coming from Hezbollah or from Hamas and potentially Hezbollah, but there is a genuine concern that there will be conflicts with the Arab community. Up to now, it's not happening, but that instance did happen in prior situations, and that's a concern that exists as well. But then there's the third front that Israelis are acknowledging and are seeing, and that's the global front. That's where we are part of that. the anti-Semitism that is going on in such a massive way in the States and in Europe, the delegitimization of Israel, when people are saying from free Palestine from the river to the sea, that's not free Palestine, that's not a freedom chant, that's a destruction chant. Destroy Israel, that's what exists between the river and the sea. So at the end, these are three fronts that are all coming together, and the people of Israel are seeing that. And it was, I'll actually allow Perry to share a couple of interesting conversations that the people we met had with us about that third front. Perry, please.
It's really kind of amazing, right? With all of the trauma that they've experienced, they actually turn around and look to us and ask how we're dealing with it. They see what's going on the college campuses, and they ask. I was in that meeting that I mentioned on the 44th floor, and the sirens went off, and we went into a bomb shelter on the 44th floor of a tower, no windows. You're standing there, and everyone's looking at their phone, trying to figure out, where the bomb's falling, how risky is this? And someone I'm talking to turns and asks me about what's going on in San Francisco, and it's just reflective of kind of the connection and the nature of the Israelis and of Jews ultimately that we do associate with this concept of Am Yisrael, that we are one, and that we are fighting on similar, on the same front and on in different locales, but the fact is that we are facing this threat that we need to respond to.
And Barry, you've talked a lot about the emotional aspects, the sort of impactful things that you saw on the trip. We've already talked a little bit about the emergency fund. What are some of the other actions that we can do here together?
So I think it's critical for us to engage in our community. There's so many conversations that go on. There's so much disinformation that gets passed around that we need to be present and not allow that, or attempt to counter it and to display correct information and or the other side of the story that doesn't always get presented. And we do that through rallies, and there are rallies that are going on all around our community. There's one coming up, I think, on Friday, that is what's called empty Shabbat tables across the bay. There are 200, I think they're going to be Shabbat tables set up for 239 people. There's one in Berkeley, there's one in Foster City, Napa, San Francisco, Sausalito, and Walnut Creek. And they're open I think they're going to be set up from 11 to 6. And we should go. We should be present. There's a national rally that's happening on the 14th of, I think it's the 14th of November in Washington, D.C. We should make every effort to participate in that for those that can. We should be present in our organizations, wherever we're involved, our synagogues or our Jewish organizations, and making sure that our organizations are presenting environments for people to be able to understand and express solidarity, questions, whatever, that we should be pushing our organizations to participate in, whether it's through Federation or the Jewish Community Relations Council, which is doing amazing work in our community to combat so much of the things that are happening in our counties and our cities. We should look to them as resources, and we should participate in the efforts that they're making to counter the disinformation and the programming that is misleading so much of our community. And there websites for both all organizations really point back to how to participate, but as simple as wearing a ribbon to participating in rallies and going to hear speakers at our organizations so that we can express the solidarity, I think is what we need to be doing, along with supporting the financial needs of the communities. You can well imagine Israel's needs are tremendous. Our organization's needs are tremendous in order to be able to combat and support the community.
I'll add also, and thank you, Barry, the issue of the hostages is a huge issue that each one of us needs to sort of grasp as a personal task. It's writing to Congress. That's a very immediate action. There are tools online in the forum, hostages in other areas. We can share that and we will send it in a follow-up email. But write to Congress and convey the importance, the criticality of it, keep it top of mind for our elected leaders, urge them to reach out to the Red Cross and apply pressure so we get information about the hostages. That's and to be relentless about it, because the big concern is that people get used to the idea. People get used to the idea that there are 240 hostages, on the other side of the world, and continue with their lives. And we have a duty here to make sure that that doesn't happen. So rallies, advocacy, communication with Congress, local leaders as well. All of these are and more, and be creative about it, are things that we can all do to make an impact on this situation.
And I would add one thing to the connection to the congressmen and/or local officials, not just to complain, but actually to thank, to be present and make them aware that there are people in the community that are appreciative and supportive of things that they do that we believe are right, and that it's incumbent to do both. It's not only to raise the issue and raise the flag when there's a problem, but it's also to be appreciative and acknowledge the support that we do have.
Thank you. I see you're already starting to address a lot of the questions that are coming up in the chat. We're managing some of them that are coming in more anonymously. We do have a question about what Israeli thinks about, the loss of Palestinian lives, and I'm wondering if anybody wants to comment on that, and maybe things that were discussed on the trip as well.
I can say a few words on that. The war is not against Palestinians, and that's, I know that we are living in a society that is looking at everything in this, and many questions are being asked around us and by media. But this is not a war against the Palestinians. This is a war against evil, against Hamas, who is effectively an ISIS organization. It's an Islamic fundamentalist organization that put on its mission, on its manifesto, the goals of killing Jews across the board, destroying Israel, and establishing a Muslim caliphate in that area. That's what they have in their Declaration of Independence. And they are very serious about it. They just proved it to us on October 7th. So when we think about this, this is a war against that. And we Americans have known that. When the attacks on 9/11 happened, we knew that we need to take Al-Qaeda down all the way to the end. And it took years. And it took, regretfully, casualties also on the civilian side. But we knew that that organization that attacked us in New York, in our homes, cannot continue to exist. And when ISIS in Syria and Iraq came to be, when the remains of Al-Qaeda, same thing. We knew that we need to attack that in full force, and we were successful in doing so. Hamas is the third iteration of that. And if at all there is a lesson here, we shouldn't have allowed that to exist from the get-go, when they were weak and beginning, and rather than where it is today. So we need to focus on minimizing Palestinian, innocent Palestinians getting hurt, focus on humanitarian corridors, and I think that's what the US and Israel are trying to do. But we can't be in a situation when an organization as evil in the most declarative way possible and the most proven way possible exist. That has to be eradicated, and it's tough.
Thank you. Before I thank you formally and close up, Barak, is there any last words that you have for us?
Just to say that these are really hard days for all of us, really tough days, both as a peace activist and as a liberal, as a humanist. You know, we see what's going on in Gaza. We don't see it as much as in the international community we saw, but I couldn't agree more with Guy. I think that there's a constant, trial, to minimize casualties on innocent casualties, but we're embedded in a very complex conflict right now. So just to say that it really is very tough to be you in these crazy times, and we hang on you and many who support, who bring us new thoughts, who expand our horizons, who show up. We're in Mishpucha.
Thank you, Barak. We are sending you all of our strength and our love, and really just want to thank you for continuing to work on behalf of the Federation, the Bay Area Jewish community. You have a lot on your own plate with your family. We're wishing safety for your family and for you. I want to thank Barry and Guy for showing up. I called them and said, there is a chance to go to Israel. You have to let me know today. And Guy has been chairing our Israel Affairs Task Force. Barry has been an active member of that. And without hesitation, they both said yes. And to go to Israel at a difficult time, to represent us from the moment, listening to your story, Barry, literally from the moment you got off the plane until you were back at home. We are grateful for your leadership. We want to thank you for being there and bringing these stories back. They are so important. And just to, end and pick up where you left off, Barry, there are a lot of things to do. It's hard sometimes to keep track of what it all is. There are a number of organizations across the Bay Area that are doing incredible work. Barry mentioned some of them. You should be connected to them. Many of them have their own resource pages. The Federation has launched a resource page on our website at jewishfed.org. It links you right to all of the places you need to be at, including JCRC, if you're talking about advocacy or fighting anti-Semitism or making reports in the local community. It gives you all the information you need about security, which the Federation manages for the Jewish community across Northern California. And also, I saw that Ronit Jacobs is on this call. She's been working hard on a resource page, SF Bay for Israel, which will be live soon. There are also resources for Israelis. We have people who are moving here from Israel and relocating to the Bay Area. They need your help. Israel needs our help and our support. I hope you will join me, my colleagues, the Federation, and many other Jewish organizations on Tuesday. Barry talked about this. There is a national rally on Tuesday in Washington, D.C. from 1 to 3 p.m. at the mall. And it is, they are expecting 250,000 or more people to come from across the United States to show our support and stand in solidarity with Israel, to fight anti-Semitism, and to call to action for the release of all of the hostages immediately. I hope you will join me there. I think this will be an opportunity to really show our support and our strength across, and our pride in being Jewish, My daughter, Barry knows he was at synagogue Friday right before he left for Israel. My daughter just had her bat mitzvah. And, on the one hand, I was worried about the timing. And on the other hand, it was beautiful because it was a chance to celebrate being Jewish in a really safe place. And I'm looking forward to this rally to be with other people from across the United States who feel like being Jewish is important and something we should stand up for and Israel. So I hope you will join me there and others. Tons of information on our website and in the chat. So please join us. Thank you again to Guy, to Barry, to Barak, and to all of you. I hope you will stay tuned. There's more, after the rally, more events coming up and opportunities to learn about what you can do. I'll also be at a Shabbat dinner on Friday at the San Francisco JCC that we're co-sponsoring. Just lots of opportunities to show up, and that's what matters most. So thank you for everything, and may you be safe and protected, and we're keeping Israel in our thoughts and prayers. Have a nice day. Thank you.